Hi guys, so this is our construction of the quadrilaterals, and so I started with the squares and I did my two separate methods, so I have my two separate things here, and here I was even just trying to put in different shapes and see where I could put them. I even tried to get them perfectly on each other, but it didn't work out, but it's kind of cool because then you can move them and you can get them back somewhat close, just not perfect. But I was a little nervous at first playing with the different shapes and making sure I did everything properly and doing then the second method. But I was a little interested because, let me see if I can get them to show the points. Show labels. So if you look here, when I did it, it was being funky and I was trying to name my points A, B, C. But instead of it doing C, it said B prime, and then when I made the what should be D, it said A prime, and so I didn't know if there's a way we could edit it and change it from B prime so that it could be C, and then from A prime so it could be D. And then I have the two squares when we had to put them together. So the square I thought was pretty easy, especially doing the two different ways. I was a little more nervous when we had to do the different shapes because then I had to recall what are the properties of the shapes. And so I'll be honest, I had to check a few things on Google, but I had to think about the properties so that way I could think of also how to make it. So for the different squares though, so for this one, this is when we use the compass to make the square. And I actually noticed the same thing with the two separate methods and seeing that if you sit and you look with it, and I don't know what's what anymore by rotating, but I'm assuming this is A and this is B. And these are the first 2 points and this is the line segment. And so you see that these 2 points, when you play with them, you can change the size or the rotation, and it rotates around the other point. And so you're playing with that original line segment you started with. Now, let's see. So this must be point D. No, so C and D are the same. So when you do C and D, the later points you had, all it does is move the shape. And so then I also figured out that if you have more than 1 point and then you try and do something, you're always just going to drag it. And then if you have all the points, it's always just going to drag, because I was a little confused when I was doing stuff like that. And then for the second one, I figured out very similar. So if you start with the first point, it's actually just dragging, which is different. And then same with B, but the second point, oh, everything's selected, that's why. No, so A and B are the same thing. So when I do my first point, I can do the size and the rotate. Same with B. The segment stays the same. But when I have this one, it does the same. And then the last one just drags. Now, when I did the rectangle, so the way I made my rectangle is I started with the segment here, and then I created this perpendicular line, and I also then I created the parallel line and then a perpendicular line, putting in the points. And I figured out while I was playing with this, it had the same type of pattern with the rotation. So A, I could change my size and the rotation, and it stays around B. B, same thing, it stays around A, so it's that line segment again. C, I saw just moved the shape of the rectangle, so we can make it longer, smaller. We could try and make a square. Whereas D just did the drag. So C actually played with the rectangle a little bit, whereas D just made the drag. Next, I did the rhombus. And so from the rhombus, what I did is I started with the segment AB, and then I actually created a circle because I knew that I wanted my lengths to be all the same size. So I figured if I started with a circle, because this would be our radius, and then I made another radius, they would be equal distance. And so I made that circle, and then I used the line, so I used this point C and this line here, AB, to make a parallel line. And then I did the same thing here with AC and A and made a parallel line. And where they intersected, I put point D, and I found it through that. When I was playing with the rhombus, I figured out that once again, A changed the size and the rotation around B. B did the same thing around A. C played with the rhombus a little bit, whereas D just drug. And so this is similar to the rectangle where this is changing the rhombus. And then D will just drag it. Next, I did a parallelogram. And so to make a parallelogram, I started with AB, and I made that segment. And then to make AC, I started with a line, and I just kind of picked a random line, pulled it out, and then made a line parallel, or no, I'm sorry, parallel to AB, and then created through the other stuff. And then when rotating it, I saw very similar. So A, we can rotate, we can change the size. Similar with B. I can change the rotation, I can change the size. C kind of did similar of B, where I'm just moving around the parallelogram, and D was the drag. Next I did the trapezoid, and so the trapezoid for me was a little bit different. And I don't know if I did it exactly the best way, and I think that I probably could do it a better way. Because, and I guess that changes, I'm not sure if that changes why things work differently. But what I did is, so I made the line segment AB, and I actually just made a random point and put it down here so I could create a parallel line, and then created our line segments. And I'm not sure if it's because it's the trapezoid or if it's because of the way I did it, but each vertex changes a little bit, and so we have A and B are similar. C just moves this corner, and D just moves this corner, so no one vertices or vertex moves the whole entire trapezoid, so you would have to choose all of them. Are just being annoying right now. And you'd have to move all of them to drag it. Next, I did the kite, and this is my last one, and I still don't know if it's perfect or even the best way to do it because of the way it's dragging. But what I did is I created a circle and the diagonals, and I guess I can show you if I'm able to show all hidden. Yeah, so what I did is I made this circle and I created this diagonals, and then from the diagonals I created A, C, A, B, and then I was able to make B, D, and C, D, and then hid everything. I don't know, I'll have to rehide them. Hide the diagonals and the circle. Oops. And I ended up with the kite. The only strange thing, so A makes it big, I can rotate as we saw beginning. B is actually just the drag, which is interesting because usually it was always the last point. C is also just a drag, and then D brings us in and out, which we could have used that in our last module. But so I'm not sure if I made that in the best way, and there's a better way I should do it. But yeah, so I hope everyone liked it. Thanks.